guys. Happy Tuesday evening. I hope everybody's Tuesday went well. Mine went swimmingly. Hope y'all's did too. I know, right? Cement shoes, like it's just it's too much. It's always ugh, gross ass. Nancy Brophy, huh? Okay, well, I'm gonna put that on the list, but I'm keeping it in the Valo theme. So we're gonna do Melanie Gibbs' phone call to Lori on Friday. Yeah. Hey, Amelia Sparkles. Hello, hello, hello. I've been dying to roast that phone call because it's just so ridiculous. It's awkward. It's like Melanie knows that she's being recorded. So she's careful about what she is saying, and Lori and Chad know that they're being recorded, so they're being careful, and they really just want to rip into each other. I think Melanie and Lori do, but they can't because they're sus of each other. I mean, obviously Melanie knows the phone call is being recorded. She's the one who recorded it. Hey, Molson man, good to see ya. All you cool cats and kittens. It's your pal Jen Lou. Oh, did you cement shoes? It's pretty good. I actually was rather impressed with it. In fact, I was bummed when I saw that it was only 3 episodes and that the third episode was shorter than the first two. I was like, oh man. Okay, so tonight we're going to go over the testimony from today, which was the medical examiner. And I watched all of it, okay, but as I was watching it, I had several obvious, you know me. Obviously, I had several thoughts and several questions. So the first question I had when I first started watching it this morning was, please don't judge. But I couldn't tell if she was wearing a shirt under the blazer. I don't know why it was distracting to me. I guess because I couldn't find the crack in the plaster that I normally focus on. And but you'll be happy to know that I answered the question. Yes, the answer is yes, she was wearing a shirt. Yes, we're talking about Sins of Our Mother. Yes, it was very well done. Okay, so that was my first question. And then my second question was, as she was moving through the autopsies. So they had her on the stand today. She testified nearly all day. I think the last maybe hour and a half, they called Special Agent Fortner back from the BCI. But this is what was interesting to me. She only testified today about the autopsies that she performed on Chris Roden Sr. and Gary Roden. And what I also noticed is that when they had the BCI agents on, they were only discussing the first crime scene, which they refer to as A, which is the Chris Roden Sr.'s home that he shared with, or I don't know if he shared, I don't want to say it like that, but Gary Roden was staying there, living there. Um, so I think that's the way the theme of the trial is going to be. So they're going to do crime scene A, then they're going to move to crime scene B, which crime scene B is Frankie Roden and Hannah Gillies' place. Okay, so I thought, which I actually think is a good idea to do it that way, because if you have all, like, if they were to have the BCI agents on, first of all, can you imagine how long they would be testifying, because it's 4 crime scenes. So I think splitting it up is a good idea. Number one, I think it'll help keep the jury organized if they can break it down crime scene to crime scene and start with the evidence collection and then um I don't remember if that's what they said nonstop, Mom. Honestly, I don't. They probably did, and I think I'm having some damn ass epiphany that, they probably announced, to be quite honest with you. That's probably what's happening, but I do think that that's a good idea. I like the way that they're doing that because it helps. So, then I'm listening, right? And I'm listening to the things that she's, explaining as far as the autopsy goes, and they probably did. She probably did nonstop, Mom. She probably did say it like that. But listen, it was 5 hours, okay? And I got to be really honest in that I can't keep 5 hours worth of information in this brain, plus all of the random song lyrics and movie lines from movies that I have stored in my data banks up in my 11 billion tabs upstairs. Okay. I just can't do it. So they probably did. She probably did say it. And I'm just over here thinking I'm the smartest person alive. Just kidding. I don't ever think that. But anyway. Okay. So then I started thinking about it. Okay. Because obviously they're going over Chris and Gary's autopsy report. She is. And she is discussing the condition the bodies were in and probably nonstop, Mom. No, it doesn't. Okay. Let me explain how 5 hour energy works. 5 hour energy for somebody who doesn't have ADD, probably they're have the Zooms and they're very, busy. 5 hour energy for me makes me able to sit and listen to the same thing for 5 hours. It doesn't work like that for me. It's like a little like legal, not legal, like non-prescription ADHD meds for me. Okay. So over the counter, herbal. Okay. So I started listening, I was listening to it and I was paying very, very close attention. But it made me think about something because when she was testifying as to the way that the bodies were when hold on, just give me 1 second. Mac wants in and he's banging at the door. Please hold. Oh, wow. Hey, Jennifer Bradford. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for referring a friend, Wilson man. Good to see you. I'm glad you came. Okay. So she's talking about the level of decomposition that Chris Sr. and Gary arrived with, right? And I kept thinking back. Now you'll be proud of me, nonstop, Mom, because this bit of information I did retain. I thought back to the opening statements where the prosecutor said, we know almost the exact time of death when it comes to Chris Sr. and Gary Roden because of the phone call that Chris Sr. made to Billy Wagner's phone call, right? Because Billy said, "Oh, I lost my phone, blah, 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 whatever." Okay. So, hey, Vincent's missing ear. See, I do be retaining some stuff. And I probably will retain more as it becomes useful. I probably retained all of it. It's just somewhere crammed behind a bunch of song lyrics. Like today, today, Insane in the Brain was running through my head. Okay. So anyway, let me get back on topic. See, this is what happens when I can't take 5 hour energy at night, obviously, but Um, I probably should, but anyway, and then I could focus. Okay, so it made me so I'm thinking about this, right? I'm thinking about what they're saying and how there's, essentially there was about close to 30 hours between when the police arrived on scene, and the processing of the scene and the removal of everybody, and then they went to the coroner's office or the medical examiner's office, like 30 hours. They did have them in a mobile unit, but she didn't know what temperature the mobile unit is kept at. So Chris Senior was significant, and Gary were had significantly more decomp than the rest of the family. Which I started thinking about it, and I remembered that Dana was working that night. And so then it made me think, okay, how long was it between approximately could I figure out how long was it between them going to Chris Senior's, and then the second crime scene, which would be Frankie and Hannah, and then the third crime scene, which would be Dana, Hannah Mae, and Chris Jr., and then the fourth crime scene, which would be Kenneth Roden, excuse me. Okay, so I said, I wonder if somebody knows this information. And I remembered also that in the opening statements, the prosecutor talked about the last calls, texts that occurred, and social media posts. So your girl went a digging. Hi, and 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is what I've come up with for the timeline. And this is gonna, like, this isn't earth shattering news. It's probably all over the internet. But I just want you, when we get to listening to her, I want you to keep this like in the back of your brain. Okay, so sometime between 10:30 and 11 p.m. on April 21st, 2016, Chris Roden Sr. and Gary Roden were unalived. Okay. At 12:40 a.m. on April 22nd, 2016, Hannah Mae Roden sent her last text. She sent it to her boyfriend, Colin, who was supposed to spend the night that night. Okay. At 12:54 a.m., Dana Roden posted to Facebook. And at 12:58 a.m., Dana sent her last text. Now, that, by my calculations, okay, and at 11 p.m. also, Dana Roden was on her way home from her shift. Okay. So that puts an hour. Well, shit, no. Okay, so 1 o'clock in the morning, nearly 2 hours later. Okay. They're over at um Frankie, or at Dana and Hannah and Chris Jr.'s house. So that leaves probably what, an hour or so, maybe a little more. Yeah, like an hour per crime scene, maybe an hour and a half at each crime scene, which means that, which this is what I'm curious about. Where was the truck that the Wagners drove? Because they had to I know that it was parked in front of the house at Chris Senior's. okay, because it had the false bed in it, and that's when George and Jake were supposed to come out and, commence, right? Hey, Mrs. M, good to see you. All right, so there's that, right? But then I need to see a better view of the homes, because I need to see if I feel like if Dana drove past Chris Sr.'s house, and I think this is also in the opening statements, that she would have seen Billy Wagner's truck out there, because I feel like her last, hey Sam, I think her last text was to Billy Wagner and it went unanswered. I mean, Chris Sr., and it went unanswered. And she probably thought nothing of it, bless her heart. I mean, that is a tight window. Really, it is. It doesn't seem like 2 hours seems like a long time, okay? But it's really not in the scheme of things when you consider what all they had to do. Because when the BCI, the Agent Fortner from the BCI was testifying, he was asked if they located any shell casings outside, and they did not. But you know that firearm, the gun was fired outside of that house. That's how it started. But they had to have picked those up. So anyway, those are just my thoughts. I'm still, and I don't even, I can't move past what this other family did. I can't move past what the Wagners did. I just cannot wrap my brain around, oh, excuse me, sitting around and planning this. I can't, I just can't wrap my brain around it. I'm just, it boggles my brain. And I'm like, I can pretty well reason things out and take the emotion out of it and just be extremely analytical. But this, I'm having a hard time with, like, analyzing this one, because it's so messed up. Honestly, it is completely and totally messed up. I'm just out completely blown away by what this family did. All right, so let's get to where we want to be here. There's some parts I want to show you. So I think what I'm going to do is, for those that missed it, I just want to play a little bit of her beginning testimony, because I want you guys to hear what she says about the condition that the bodies were in. And then we're going to move forward. Let me see if the transcript's up here. Usually they have the transcript, but I guess they don't. Let me look. Nope, no transcript. All right, so we're just going to listen. I'm going to speed her up just a tiny bit because it doesn't really actually make a difference, but I I just want you guys to hear this first part about how she um yeah, I mean all of it just blows me away. I just want you guys to hear this part and then I'm going to skip forward because there's a lot of obviously they showed photographs, okay? And the judge had a very clear and strict ruling about that and and so the media they did an excellent job as far as adhering to that almost on the side of caution extra more they aired more on the side of caution. I can't even talk. So um yeah, but later on after lunch she's gonna show her own, you know how when you get an autopsy report how there is um they have the outline of a human being, the front and then the back, and the medical examiner makes notes on it. She did that and she showed it, and I just want you guys to hear that because it's just so awful. All right, so here we go. And I want you guys to read this if you're coming. I can't believe this. This family had the cops thinking professional hit for over a year. A pastor in Alaska said they were such a wonderful family. That just absolutely blows me away at how good people can be at fooling other people. It just it never ceases to amaze me. I always think, nothing is going to shock me. I've got it. But no, I'm not. I'm still blown away by it, and I think a lot of the reason, and maybe I don't know if you would agree, Jennifer, but it seems to me that a lot of the reason that the cops were leaning towards a professional hit was because of this grow operation, and because of the lack of evidence and the fact that they were able to move between these homes the way that they were. And just wait till you just wait. Okay, I'm just going to stop talking and play for you guys because I want you to hear this. Okay, for reals now, I'm going to be quiet.
These bodies arriving Saturday and Sunday would be my responsibility to do the cases.
Okay. And did you in fact ultimately conduct the autopsies on all 8 individuals?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us, if you recall, approximately what time those bodies arrived at the Hamilton County Coroner's Office?
I believe they arrived Saturday around 5:30 in the morning.
And can you tell us what was done with each individual body upon arrival?
So the bodies came all together. So what happened was each body was given checked in and given a barcode and scanned and then put in the cooler. And then the next body was pulled in, given a barcode, scanned, and put in the cooler. And we did that with all 8. So that all of them, we didn't touch them, we didn't open them up. We actually accepted them, started the chain of custody, and put the bodies in the cooler until we were ready to start one at a time to prepare them.
Okay. And that is ultimately documented, correct? The time that they are, quote, scanned, given a barcode and scanned and placed in your cooler.
Yeah, our computer system creates the chain of custody and tells us who has custody of the body and where it is.
Hey, Christine G, that's me. Hi, I've
us,
learned a lot. Good to
Dr.
see
Lohman,
you guys.
How did you conduct these examinations as far as, did you do them all in one day? How did you go about approaching that?
With there being 8, I decided I would do the women on Saturday. I would do the men on Sunday, except for one gentleman, Christopher Sr., who looked like he was injured the worst and would take longer. So I did Christopher Sr. on Monday. So I did women on Saturday, the rest of the men on Sunday, and Chris Sr. on Monday.
Okay. And can you tell us, was was there a representative from BCI present when you conducted these autopsies?
Yes.
And did you collect any personal effects or evidence or any bullets or bullet fragments from the bodies of these 8 individuals?
Yes.
And were those ultimately provided to the BCI agent that was present?
Yes.
When you first received the bodies and had the, kind of brief amount of information that Dr. Kessler had provided to you, did you have any initial thoughts, or did you want to pay particular attention to any particular issues at that time?
Yes. I did notice that many of the bodies were starting to show signs of decomposition.
Okay. Did you also form an opinion based on the fact that a lot of them, you were informed that a lot of them were shot while they were in their beds and many of them appeared to be sleeping?
Yes.
And what did you, what approach did you take as a result of that information?
In regards to further testing, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Or anything, yeah.
It became apparent looking at where the wounds were that it seemed that many of them were shot multiple times and never moved, never appeared to have reacted to other people in the house being shot as well. And so in my mind, I was trying to figure out why somebody wouldn't respond when other people in the house are getting shot. I think they would wake up with gunfire. So one of the things I did was did a little bit of extra toxicology to see if maybe they'd been drugged and they were all didn't wake up because they were sleeping. And another thought was, well, mostly it was the drugs I was concerned about, that maybe they had drugs. The other thought, though, was that maybe there was something that
Hey,
was muffling the
support with
gunfire.
Steffa. Good to see you, babe.
But
I just love to greet
I can't find
everybody that
evidence on the
comes
body that
in.
would suggest that there's something that was muffling the fire. That's not something I could see, but that was in my head.
Okay, and when you say that's not something you could see, is it something you would ever be able to see?
Unless there's remnants of something that covered the gun left at the scene or showed to me, that's not something that shows up on the body.
But you were struck by the fact that the victims did not wake up when they were in the same residence as other individuals. And so you were considering either
Hey,
something that
Britt,
muffled
good
the
to
gun
see
or
you.
possibly they had
Welcome.
been drugged such that they were not responding.
Would not wake up, that's correct.
Okay.
Spoiler alert. George Washington Wagner
regarding
the
the
Fourth is
personal
writing
effects
something. I'm
of
sure it's
individuals, if
scintillating.
it is a homicide case, what do you do with those personal effects?
On all homicide cases, including clothing and any jewelry or money that's found on the body, we hold on to that. We don't, in other cases where there's not a concern of a homicide, we take the clothes off and put them in a bag and release them with the body when the funeral home comes to pick them up. But in cases of homicide, we hold on to all that because we're not sure what is considered evidence, what is considered important to the police or the prosecutor's office. So we hold on to that.
Okay. And in this case, you already testified that you gave those items to the BCI agent that was present.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what the BCI agent's name was?
There were different people on different days.
Okay. I'm going to turn your attention now to the autopsy that you conducted of Chris Sr., which actually was the last autopsy that you conducted, but it's the one we'll deal with first today.
That's what I like about you, Vincent's missing ear. You're always half full and you're always looking on the bright side, and you're right. At least we aren't watching him scribble furiously on post-it notes and then handing them around.
Doctor, I'm first going to
Like
hand
we're in
you, and
third
I'm sorry,
grade.
because I did not count. I believe it's 12-page document stapled together. If you could go ahead and look at that and tell me if you recognize what that is State's Exhibit.
Yes.
And what do you
Oh,
recommend
is
that?
she? Is that
This
your
is
daughter,
the
Super
autopsy report
Mustafa?
with the opinion page and
Aw,
the
well,
toxicology
welcome. Extra
on
welcome.
Christopher Roden Sr.
And is that a report that you prepared
Yes,
in your normal course of business? Do you always prepare a report after you conduct an autopsy?
yes, I do.
And then approaching you with a 6-page document marked as States Exhibit E-257. And again, you can just look at that and tell me if you recognize
Yeah,
it.
we really like your mom, Britt. We really
Yes.
do. All right, so I'm going to
Um,
go forward a
what do you
little bit
recommend for
because I want us to.
These are
I want you guys to see
diagrams that I created as
The-
I was looking at the body, and they describe injuries,
the
scars,
diagrams.
other things that I found on the body, color of the hair, color of the eyes,
Although,
bruises. I describe it on the diagrams, and then that in the photographs helped me.
there is this part.
Early on, this is the one that you can really see. So you see the black is the hole, and you see the pink around the edge is the abrasion that occurs when the bullet is going through the skin.
Is it right here?
Twists off
Hold
a
on,
little
I got to
bit,
see if
skin
I
around
can
the edge
find
of
it
that
again. The
hole.
judge just makes
That
this
indicates
face.
So all of them have that, but this one is most visible from a distance.
Oh, here it
Okay.
is, you
And,
guys. Right, it's right here.
The decomposition, and they laid some eggs on his face.
Hold on.
Can you tell us what that is?
All right, watch this.
After you died, and if you're dying in an area that's open to the environment, certain
Oh, whoops.
flies smell death, and they will land on your body and they will lay eggs. And the eggs look like sawdust, sometimes yellow, sometimes white. And where he was laying, although it was inside, it must have had access to flies. So flies found his body because they smelled the decomposition, and they laid some eggs on his face.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just
And then
the judge's
States
face.
Exhibit
Okay, hold on,
E11.
because it's such descriptive.
Can you tell us what that is?
So this is a piece of clothing, I believe. This is his brown sweatshirt, hooded
Here's
sweatshirt,
lunch.
and that's a bullet that fell out when we were moving the sweatshirt.
Okay. And then E12, I
Oh,
believe is
crap.
just a close-up
Hold on.
of the same.
Yes, so you can see that the bullet has some gray color, so it's a lead bullet, and then it has a jacket that has a covering that looks copper, has a copper color.
Okay, you can have a seat.
Where's it at? Oh, hell. No, it's back this way somewhere. Hold on, I'll find it. All right.
I'm going to first hand you what I have marked as States Exhibit E-234. And if you
Because it's like right after lunch. And I remember because I was watching. Here we go. Told you guys I'd find it.
Underneath the chin, that 3R. That upper
All right.
picture with the soot, that was number 1. And here is where it exits, behind the left ear, and I've got L for left. Left ear, that's where the bullet exits. Here's a kind of representation of where bullets 2 and 3 are in the left back of the head. 4 is a kind of representation of being in the spine. It's kind of
I
down
didn't
at
know that
level.
either.
Number 5 is
Bowling with
upward,
cotton balls.
behind the Billy. Behind the left ear, that's where number 5 exits.
Okay.
And number 6 underneath the chin that went to his left back is in a second diaphragm.
and that should be
There you go.
Also, I don't know if she's going to go back over this again, but this is Chris Roden Sr. that she's showing the diagram of where all of the bullet holes entered and exited. One of the shots, one of the bullets traveled and went through his spinal column, and so it's called an what is it? What did she say it was? An internal decapitation. And I mean, she's gonna, this is why I wanted to get to this part, because she goes more in depth, and she talks about the angle, and I just want you guys to hear it, okay? Because I found this to be really interesting. All right, here we go.
So this is where number 6 ended up, and we pulled the bullet out of it.
Okay. And did you have to take, what measures did you have to take to remove that?
Based on the x-ray, you had a general idea of where it was, and I could actually feel it underneath his skin. So I drew a circle around it and took a picture of where the bullet was, and then I cut through the skin to get the bullet.
Okay. Sorry. If you go back to that first diagram.
I have to tell you guys one thing also that I forgot about. So remember how we've been talking about the precariousness of the TV over the witnesses' heads? Well, today, every time the prosecutor would put a picture or a visual up, right, and she wanted the any of the, well, just, it was only 2 witnesses for, so today, for the medical examiner or the forensic pathologist, anytime she wanted the forensic pathologist to point something out on the TV, she would tell her, remember not to touch the TV, and not, or one time she even said, don't touch it or breathe on it. And I just thought that was kind of, just one of those things, because we've been talking about it. Okay, now for real, I'm going to be quiet.
The exit right, well, no, go down, sorry. Okay. Yes. So there's, yep, that one. That is the exit of gunshot wound number 1?
Yes.
Okay. And can you switch to E190?
Hey, Tony.
And can you tell us what we are seeing in that picture?
This is the back of the left ear. The hole where the bullet exited is closest to the label, and then the bullet kind of grazed the skin as it exited that hole and came out the side of the ear. So the ear faces this way. So the hole came out at the base of it and then scratched the skin and then came out going that way.
Okay. So the injuries there were caused by the bullet and not by anything you did.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And then also on that same photograph, you see another shaved area, it appears.
Yes.
And can you move the pointer away from there? That's clear, thank you. Can you tell us what injury we are seeing
This is
there?
the exit of number 5, which is the wound, the farthest wound down here. So number 5, sorry, it's on the right, and then it exits behind the left ear, and that's what we're seeing as the wound where the bullet exited for number 5.
Okay. Showing E98. Yes. Can you tell us what we are looking at there?
So this is the senior's back. Remember I talked about liver and the settling of blood? That's what this red is here. The blood is settled. There's a tiny little bruise right there. And if you feel it, that's where that bullet was that came from underneath the chin on the right side. So the bullet went in underneath his chin, across his neck, back muscle, and ended up underneath the skin. On that, it looks darker on that one, but it's a dark purple bruise, and the bullet is underneath.
Okay. And then E119.
So that's that bruise, and I circled it with a Sharpie marker because I could feel the bullet underneath there.
Okay. And then E120.
And this is the bullet I pulled out. This is a red polymer plug that before the gun is shot, there's a little plug that sits at the very tip of the bullet. And in this particular ammunition, many times you can find that plug in the wound itself. And in this case, it was still in the wound, in front of the bullet in that area right there.
Okay. And was that consistent with other bullets and projectile you recovered from within the body of Chris Roden Sr.
Yes.
on that date? Okay.
Yes.
That same kind of red polymer plastic piece down the center.
Yeah.
Okay. And State's Exhibit E121.
So this is the bullet we pulled out of his left back, and that's that little plug. The little red thing next to it is the plug.
Okay. And E122.
And that's a closer shot.
Okay. Okay, you can have a seat. Just for purposes of identification, E95. Is that the scar that you observed on Chris Roden that you indicated some significant surgery?
Yeah, this here.
And where is that located on his body? It's a little hard to.
Right here.
Okay. And was that also consistent with, I believe you said, the staples that we were able to see on the X-ray was in that same area?
Yes, they're underneath the skin. You can't see it here, but when we look at the X-ray, you can see that little group of staples right under the skin.
Okay. And regarding E138, I believe you testified that that was, again, an exit wound.
That's the exit wound for number 5, which is the one that's right there.
Okay. And did you also recover projectile from that area or the red plastic?
Yeah, we found that little plug in the wound itself, not a bullet, but the plug. So the bullet exited, but left that little plug plastic red piece behind.
Okay. And E143? Can you, I'm sorry, step away and show us exactly where that was located?
You see the red right here? That's the plug.
Okay. And then E144? And what does that represent?
That's the plug that we removed from that wound.
Okay. And then E146? Can you tell us what we're seeing there? And again, it's a little hard to see with the,
This is before I shaved his chin, but that's the gunshot wound number 6. That's 6. That's underneath his chin right there. And that's the bullet that went back and we got from his back on the left side.
and E84. Again, what is that a photo of?
That is the wood pseudo-stippling. That's the wood fragments that are sticking into the wounds on his forehead. You see the light brown light in some of the wounds. And so that little piece of wood is sticking out of the skin.
And do you have an opinion as to how that injury would have been received?
Yeah.
And what is that opinion?
If something wood or whatever made up these projectiles flew at his head in a high velocity, they would stick in his head. So if he was shot into something that was wood and that the wood broke up and could strike him in the face and sticking the skin in.
Okay. And is that something that you also noted on those diagrams?
Yes,
The wood stippling there?
yes.
Okay. And turning your attention then, you indicated you moved down the body. Where did you locate gunshot number 7?
7 was in the right chest.
Okay. And upon further examination, could you tell the path of that
Yes.
bullet? And can you tell us what that was?
Yeah, so that went through some ribs on the front of his chest here. It actually went through his heart. Behind his heart is the aorta, the largest artery in the body. It poked a hole in the aorta. Actually injured his esophagus, which is the tube that takes food from your mouth to your stomach, injured the esophagus. Actually scratched the side of one of the spine vertebrae, the thoracic, which is the upper chest vertebrae, and exited between some ribs and stopped in between the skin surface and the ribs.
I'm with you, Ann.
You had
5,
an
6,
opinion
7,
as to
8.
whether
I
or
can't
not
handle
that
the little
injury
tough.
would have
Just
been
shave
fatal
it.
in and of
Let it
itself.
go.
Yes,
Without
Yes.
any of the other injuries.
yes.
Okay.
Now, also, I want you
Um,
guys to know this is all
E38.
family sitting here in this section, and bless their hearts, they've been here every single day, and they've had to look at these crime scene photographs multiple times. They've had to look at some. We don't support with Stefa.
Can you
I
tell
just
us
like
what
to
we're looking at?
pretend.
The black is dry blood
But bless
The
their hearts,
hole
they've had to sit
right
and
here
watch
on the right side
the
of his chest. It's
autopsies
right above the
today, and
label.
that's
You can see
got
there's a
to
little
be difficult. Yet here they
circular
are
hole right there. This is the hole
showing a
walks
strong
down, so
support.
It's hard to see with the blood on, but that's where the right chest hole is.
Okay.
It just breaks my
E37.
heart.
Yeah, so this is closer, and you can see there's a black hole right there. That's the hole on the right chest.
Okay. And doctor, did you form an opinion as to the distance
Right, Tony?
regarding that gunshot wound?
And it's getting
Yes.
close to
And what was that?
Thanksgiving
I called
and
this
Christmas,
also
which
loose
are
contact.
traditionally, family holidays.
Okay.
And
And tell us why,
it's
what
just
made you
sad.
reach that conclusion?
On the front of the sweatshirt, I don't know if anybody could see it when I was holding it up here, there was a rim around that hole of soot. So
I am
in
too,
my
Molson,
opinion,
man. I'm very
somebody held it up close
curious
to close
how
to
come
his
there
chest,
aren't more
which is
people,
close
but
to
perhaps
that
people
soot
are
instead of
staying
touching the
away,
skin,
waiting
actually
for
got stuck on the clothes.
Jake and
So,
Angela's
That's
testimony.
why it's always good to look at the clothes before you take them off the body, and gives you an idea of distance as well. So in this case, this was, I call it loose contact, because that soot was able to escape the muzzle and get on the clothes.
Okay. And was there an exit wound for that particular injury?
I kind of talked over that a little
And
bit, but
did you recover any bullets or fragments
let
from
me
that
push pause.
injury?
Yes.
What the medical examiner was just saying is that one of the shots that was in his chest, Chris's chest, was what she called a loose contact. So it's up close. Again, this was just so disgusting.
Okay. And where did you recover those from?
That was found.
I think she's
left
there,
lower
but
back.
I can't tell because they haven't really scanned the gallery that much. This happened in 2016. I've learned a lot.
8.
And the arrest didn't come until 2018. The state
And again, can you tell us what we're looking at?
was tedious and
This is,
meticulous
Chris's back.
in
This is the
collecting
bullet that we found
evidence,
from underneath his
testing
chin, that
evidence,
bruise
and
that's on
building this
the
case.
posterior left shoulder there. There is a faint
Oh, am I? Dadgummit, hold on.
contusion right there, which is where this bullet number 7 that went through his heart ended up right underneath the skin right there.
Okay. And you did the same thing with that injury as you had done with the prior one, correct?
Yes,
As far as drawing a circle around it and then excising it.
yes.
Is that better, you guys? I don't want to be crackly.
sorry, trying to find out. E124. And is that,
I think that's, yes, I think that's the bullet from his left lower back.
okay. And then E125. Just a close up of that.
Okay.
Yeah, picture of the bullet.
Okay. All right. Gunshot wound number 8.
I wonder if
If you can
they're
tell us
not
what that gunshot wound was.
allowing a lot of there she is. If they're not allowing a lot of
And I believe
family or a
we saw
lot
the,
of
the corresponding pose in the sweatshirt and the t-shirt for that as well.
Yes,
Correct.
a lot of the public in
E39?
because better to keep under control. I'm not exactly sure. And what's this bailiff doing?
so this is a scar that has along his abdomen here. You can see it's a little pink. Then right next to this pink area, above the label is black dot, and that's the gunshot wound on the left side.
Okay. And the label appears to be just above the belly button too. Is that correct? There.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. E40.
And that's close up shot of it.
All right, I'm gonna skip.
Okay. And were you able to determine, or
Yeah,
did you
let me
determine the
skip
distance that
forward
you
a little
believe that to
bit.
have been fired from?
This one I called indeterminate. I didn't see any soot, I didn't see any stippling, I didn't see any contact burning. So, it was a,
Kind of wanting to get.
And is that a photograph of one of the hands of?
yes, that's his, Christopher's right hand.
I want you guys to be able to hear. About Gary. I don't know why it's doing that. It's so weird. Hold on a minute. Let me.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask you a few questions before we move on to your autopsy of Gary Roden. You indicated already that you did all of the autopsies in this case, correct, of all 8 victims?
Yes,
Okay, and was Chris the only one who had that extensive of injuries, specifically indicating the high-powered weapon?
yes,
Okay, and is this an opinion, you indicated that you gave evidence that you had collected to BCI. Did you also share your opinion with BCI?
I don't recall if I did or not. I may have.
Okay. Ultimately, they would have had access to your report, however, that contained all of your opinions.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And did you have an opinion as to what type of ammunition that you recovered from the body of Chris Roden that day with the red polymer plastic?
Yes.
And what is that?
Hornaday projectiles or bullets, Hornaday bullets.
Okay. Okay. And Dr. Lohman, you already testified, I believe, that you also conducted the autopsy examination of Gary Roden.
Yes.
Correct? And that was done on the Sunday, which would have been April 24th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Lohman, I'm going to hand you, first of all, what's been marked as State's Exhibit F. I did not count those pages again. But there's multiple pages stapled together. If you could look over that and tell me if you recognize what that is.
Yes,
And what is that?
this is the autopsy report with the opinion page and the toxicology report that I completed for Gary Roden.
And then F-161, this is a 4-page document that is stapled together. If you can tell me if you recognize that.
Yes, these are the diagrams that I created when I did an external exam on Gary, documenting the injuries and tattoos and other things that were on his body, scars.
Okay. And then lastly, a 1-page document marked as F, as in Frank, 162. If you can tell me what that is.
This is the chain of custody for Gary when he was checked into our office, put in the cooler, and then when he left our office with a funeral home.
Tell you guys something that when I was looking when I was looking to see about if I could like get together somewhat of a timeline about what occurred on April 21st through April 22nd, 2016, I stumbled across more articles obviously related to the case. So remember when we were listening to Mr. Hanneshaw from the BCI, and he was talking about all of the evidence collection and all the things that he did out there at the crime scenes. And oh, yeah, absolutely, Mrs. M would love it. Please do. So they were talking also about how eventually they moved the trailers that were on the road and property, okay? And how there was an issue with that. Well, there was an issue with that because they moved them to this like warehouse, okay, where they store evidence, right? And the local news was watching them, and what they noticed is that it was unlocked. There were times when there were no officers out there guarding it, watching it, anything of that nature. And so I think that that is a lot of the reason why they're going through the evidence the way that they are, so carefully, so um at times almost a little bit in excruciating detail, because I think that there is some questions about the property being potentially contaminated. So I think that that's a lot of, well, I've learned a lot. The state says that that's the motive, that the motive was essentially when Hannah Roden was with uh, Jake Wagner, she told him that when she was younger, that she had been molested by a family friend, and that she told her parents and that they didn't do anything about it. And I guess at some point, Jake Wagner repeated the story to Angela Wagner, and she had just concocted this scenario in her brain where Sophia, which was their daughter, either was or it was potential, it was, very likely, and that nobody would be looking out for Sophia, and that is part of it. I think personally, especially given what the defense attorney said. Now, I understand you got to take what the defense attorney says with a grain of salt, but I actually think that the grow operation did have a small part to do with it. I think there was beef also between Chris Sr. and Billy Wagner. I don't understand it either. I don't. Because now they don't have custody of themselves, much less Sophia. All right, here we go.
Why don't we go ahead and take care of that now? Do you recall what time Gary Roden was checked in to your facility and placed in the cooler?
At 5:40 in the morning.
And that is on April 23rd of
Yes.
2016, correct? Okay. I meant to clear this up too. This is from Christopher E257. When I handed this to you, you have, those are your diagrams of Christopher Roden. And there's, at the bottom it says 1 of 6, and then the next page says 2 of 6.
Yes.
Etc. Can you tell me if there are 2 page 2s in there?
Mhm. Yes, there are.
Okay, and do you recall why that is?
Oh, yes. When these are scanned into our computer, they seem to cut off the margins. And when I draw on these, I go all the way out to the margin. So I copied it twice, trying to catch all of my writing on the margin where it got cut off. And so one of these, page 2, has all the writing on the left, and the other page 2 has all the writing on the right, and it's cut off on the other. So yes, there are 2.
Okay, thank you. I just meant to clear that up. So the page 2 is an identical page. It's just maneuvered
I
on the copy.
shifted it a little bit to get all the writing on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you have before you the autopsy report for Gary Roden, along with the diagram that you completed, and you already testified to the time that he was. And could you just indicate, when you began your examination of Gary Roden, did you also notice a similar decomposing condition?
Yes.
And tell us about that.
He also, I believe, was out of rigor. Yes, rigor was absent. He also started to have some skin color changes and a little bit of gas development, which is all part of decomposing. And then when I looked at the organs on the inside, they had a congested appearance that looks like they're starting to decompose.
Okay. And again, is that consistent with a 30+ hour time from when if he were killed around 11 p.m. on the 21st, and then did not get checked into the cooler at your facility until 5:40, I believe you said,
Yes.
5:40 a.m. So a little more than 30 hours that he would have been exposed. Is the condition you saw him in consistent with
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay, and again, was the same process followed for Gary Roden as for Christopher Roden, as far as removed from the cooler? The body bag would have been opened while he was still in it, underneath a camera. Ultimately, x-rays would be taken, examination of the body before, and then removal of the clothing, and then ultimately cleaning of the body, and then examination.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Just going to show you some initial
Okay, so I'm going to go forward
exhibits,
just a little bit
just
because
identifying,
I
Gary.
want you guys to be
F1.
able to hear the cross-examination, because that's always interesting what the defense decides is important to ask.
Can you tell us what we're looking at?
All right, this is the second exit defect. This is on the, I have to get my rights and lefts correct.
Hold on.
Just have a big pad of paper. I'd like to use this chart. Intermediate. Let's start with Christopher.
Okay.
And let's start with another general question. If I could, Judge, I'd ask Mr. Nash to bring over this board so I could write some information on there. What I'd like to do, Doctor, is you've used the terms contact, correct?
Yes.
Loose contact, correct?
Yes.
Intermediate, correct?
Yes.
And indeterminate, correct?
Yes.
All right, so what I'd like to do is bring this chart over here, and you're going to be testifying as to all victims eventually, correct?
Yes.
All right, so I'd like to use this chart, if I could, to kind of summarize information in one place, because you have one report for each victim, correct?
Okay.
So if you could just give me a moment to get set up here.
Oh, you're welcome. I've learned a lot. They were all, which is interesting because, everybody else was in their beds,
Let's have a
right?
big pad of paper.
But hold on, pause this because I want you guys to hear. But I was talking about this the other day when they were talking about the crime scene and how the gentleman or the officer or the special agent from BC, I was talking about it and describing the crime scene, obviously because we could not, there was no, we couldn't see. And I thought he did a really good job, by the way. But I said that to cover a victim, because they weren't unalived in the bedroom, they were unalived basically at the front door in the entryway, and then they were dragged to the bedroom. That indicates that the person who did this knew the victim, and like knew the victim. I'm not talking about knew the victim like the guy, the people at the gas station, right, where you get your gas and where you get your 5-hour energies if you're me, and your cigarettes also if you're me. Not like I know those people, right, but actually know them. They're your actual friends. You have, you hang out together, et cetera, et cetera. They've got a grandchild in common, all of those things. That is indicative of a personal relationship between the perpetrator and the victim, because if it was most stranger on strangers, they don't do that kind of a thing. I mean, there are cases, but it's rare.
So I'd like to get some definitions in one place so that we're
Yes,
all
they
using
did,
the
and
same
then whenever,
terminology. Is that fair?
All right.
and then they
Okay,
turned
so
around and
contact.
charged
You mentioned
him
that earlier. That's
for
the distance
removing
between
it
the end
and
of the muzzle and in this
they
case, the
charged
body.
him with
Is that right?
destruction
Yes.
or something
And
like
tell
that.
me if I say anything wrong.
James.
When you say contact, you mean the end of the muzzle touching the body. Is that right?
Yes,
Or the clothing covering the body.
yes.
So is it fair to say if I put 0 to 1 inch, or is it 0 inches, or how would you describe that distance?
Contact, I would say, is 0.
0 inches from the body, correct?
Yes,
Okay. So we've got contact. The next page is what you call loose contact.
yes.
And what is the distance for a loose contact from the end of the muzzle to either the clothing or the body?
Maybe about a millimeter or so up to about an inch.
1 millimeter to 1 inch. Hopefully everyone can read my writing. Okay. So let's go to the next term. And that is intermediate.
Yes.
When you say intermediate, what is the distance there?
That, approximately, and it depends on the weapon, maybe about 3 inches up to about 3 feet.
3 inches to 3 feet. Okay. And I believe the last one is indeterminate, correct?
Yes.
And what is the distance?
All right, nonstop.
That's
Thanks for
approximately
coming,
that
babe.
3 feet to infinity.
Okay. So 3 feet to forever, right?
Yes.
I'd like to know, this
More than
seems like
3 feet to more than 3 feet.
a waste of paper.
So what I'd like to do
Oh, okay, you're going to bring it
is
back now.
add
All right.
information as you give it to me concerning each gunshot wound and which category it fits. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. So since we started with Chris, why don't we just
I'll
start with
see you in the
him? Do you have
morning,
your report?
nonstop, Mom.
Yes.
Sweet
Right, and-
dreams.
Chris had a total of 9 gunshot wounds.
Yes.
right? I believe the common terminology for gunshot wound is GSW, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so if I use that up here, that's what it means. Looking at Chris's report that you prepared, did he have any contact wounds?
No.
Still looking at Chris's report, does he have any loose contact wounds?
Yes.
Which gunshot wounds do you categorize as loose contact?
2,
Let me write that down.
3.
Hold on 1 second. Slow.
Okay.
Gunshot wound number 2. And this is Chris. Senior. Okay, gunshot wound number 2.
Gunshot wound number 3.
Okay,
Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. And number 7.
I don't understand why the attorney is doing this, to be
2,
quite honest
3,
with
4,
you.
5, 6, and 7 were between 1 millimeter and 1 inch away, a firearm from his body.
Yes.
Let's go to the next one, which is the intermediate distance, which I believe you said was 3 inches to 3 feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does he have any of those type of wounds?
Yes.
Which ones?
Number 1.
Once again, this is Chris Sr.
Hey, Faraway Eyes, it's good to see you.
All right. Any others?
No.
And the final category, indeterminate 3 feet or more,
Yes.
he has those type of wounds, does he?
Yes.
Which ones?
Number 8
And number 9.
and number 9.
See? Of course,
Okay,
on
that covers
Stop
it.
Mom. I'm
That
paying
one.
Yes.
attention on
Let me ask a
Stop
couple
Mom and
follow-up
retaining
questions.
things.
This indeterminate wounds, number 8 and number 9 on Chris Sr. Were those the wounds that were made with a high-powered rifle?
1 was.
Which one?
Number 9.
And that would be to his arm?
Ooh,
Yes.
All
yes.
right, did he have any other wounds from a
I'll do that
high-powered
tomorrow
rifle?
night.
No.
All right, so that, just that one.
Yes.
Hi,
And
Corky. That's
were
an
the other
excellent
wounds,
idea.
gunshot
I will
wounds 1 through
definitely do
8,
that tomorrow
all made
night.
with a similar or same weapon?
It seemed to be yes.
Hold on, let me rewind what he said because I missed that. I was trying to hear what kind of.
Were the other wounds, and that would be to his arm?
Yes.
Rifle? A couple follow-up questions. This indeterminate wounds, number 8 and number 9 on Chris Sr. Were those the wounds that were made with a high-powered rifle?
1 was.
Which one?
Number 9.
And that would be to his arm?
Yes.
All right, did he have any other wounds from a high-powered rifle?
No.
All right, so that, just that one.
Yes.
And were the other wounds, the gunshot wounds 1 through 8, all made with a similar or same weapon?
It seemed to be yes.
Okay. A few follow-up questions with respect to Chris. You have no idea which one of the 9 wounds was first, correct?
That's correct.
All right. The gunshot wound number 9 to his arm, the high-powered rifle, that would have been extremely painful, would it have not been?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure getting
And
shot
so
anytime is
the other
extremely painful.
Gunshot wounds, if he was conscious, if he were conscious when those were administered, those would have been very painful as well.
The ones to the torso, yes.
The ones to the torso.
Yes.
What about his head wounds?
I believe if he got shot in the head, he would be unresponsive. He'd be unconscious and he wouldn't be feeling anything.
Gunshot wound number 7, I believe you indicated was a loose contact wound, and that was in his right chest.
Yes.
All right. That's near the heart area,
Yes.
and that bullet actually struck his heart, among other things. Is that right?
Yes.
Are any of his wounds to the head from behind?
No.
They're all from the front or side, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And if we could pull up the diagram with respect. Do you have that diagram in front of you?
Yes.
Can you put that up on the screen?
Well, you know what, Molson man, I'm kind of with you on this. Okay, thankfully, I have the benefit of knowing, have seen other things, and yada yada yada. But if I were strictly going based on what has only been testified to in the courtroom, if that's what I was basing my opinion solely on, I knew nothing else, which is obviously what the jurors are supposed to be doing, I would be somewhat all over the place as well. Because while I understand the need, why they're doing all of this, the truth is that if I'm remembering correctly thus far, there has been no DNA attributed to the Wagners found at Chris Sr. and Gary Roden's house. And this, again, is a death penalty case. And I think the jury is going to struggle with sentencing somebody to death solely based on witness testimony. I mean, like from the family. I think that's because I think that the average juror, and I included, I would be curious. I would wonder what would make family turn against one another, especially because in order to carry this out, they would have had to work as a team, right? And it's not like they started flipping on one another out from jump. It took until after they were arrested. And there aren't, as far as I know, up until this point, there have not been witnesses who have overheard, hey, Seth, good to see you. I have not heard any witnesses testify as to overhearing George Wagner, let me get his name right, George Washington Wagner the Fourth, confessing to anyone that he committed this crime. And so for me, as if I was on this jury, would I, at this point, I would feel comfortable. I can't even say, I mean, it's hard for me because I know more. Am I? Is it better now? My internet went a little wonky for just a sec. Is it better? Okay. It's not better, or it is better? Ugh, hold on a second. I don't know what the deal is with these, with this headphones. Hold on. Muted. How about now? Because now I'm talking and I was talking while I was muted. So, of course, nobody was hearing anything, including static. So, okay, let's try this again. For me, at this point, I haven't heard anything that puts George Washington Wagner the Fourth at any of these crime scenes. What I'm hoping for is that the state has more than just Jake and Angela Wagner, because it's for jury. And now it's wonky. Hold on a second. Okay. Hopefully that's better. So, as a juror, I would have a hard time believing two people, regardless of the fact that one of them is a mother and one of them is a brother, would be testifying right now if they hadn't have taken plea deals. And that's a lot. That's just the way human beings think. And so I would be skeptical because it's advantageous for for Jake Wagner and Angela Wagner to testify. They took plea deals, right? So this is going to be problematic, in my opinion, for the state. And what I hope is that they have that what we really need, and they just have to show he was at one crime scene. That's it. But if they can put George Washington Wagner the Fourth's feet in the shoes that left the prints in the shoe prints in the blood, then that would be huge. So hopefully they can do that. All right, let's finish listening before my audio gets all crazy again.
Can you just look at the screen and make sure we're looking at the same?
Yeah, I can see over there.
You
It
can see
is,
over
yes, yes,
That is your diagram for Chris Senior, is that right?
yes.
All right, just a few questions there. At the top, you have gunshot wound number 1, which that was the indeterminate distance. So that's,
You're sure right about that, Molson Man. And Alice says y'all need to be tithing.
That's
She
intermediate.
that's the intermediate.
She
3
needs
inches
to be
3
kept
feet.
in.
Yes,
Right, that's number
snacks
1.
and
And on your
treats.
diagram, that's below his right eye. Is that correct?
yes, yes,
You have written in there in the box GSW entrance number 1.
yes.
If we could scroll down, please. Right there, thank you. All right, and then in the next segment below, you have diagram entrance wounds number 2, 3, 4, and 5, correct?
Yes,
All right, now those kind of form a line between his nose, his lips, right below and down and below that, correct?
all on his cheek.
All on his cheek. And I believe you called that linear,
Yeah, it kind of looked like a linear line of perforations.
right? And you don't know if he was alive or not when those gunshot wounds were administered. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. I don't know if he was alive.
Now, you're going to testify about all the other victims, okay? And I'm not going to ask you about the other victims.
Oh,
now.
Seth, you need to
But
catch
is it
up.
fair to
I'm
say
telling you.
that all the other victims
Go watch
have numerous gunshot wounds
the
to
other
head,
episodes
except
I've
for
done.
one?
Watch them on 2 times speed.
You're talking about all 8 of them?
All
I'm
8
hilarious
except
in 2
for
times
there was
speed.
one victim, Ken, who had 1 shot to the eye, and that was his.
That's still the face.
That's still, but only 1.
Yes, that's correct.
He only had 1
That's
gunshot
correct.
wound at all,
That's correct.
and that was to the eye.
Yes,
All of the other victims had multiple gunshot wounds to the head or face area.
yes,
And Chris is the only one that has gunshot wounds to the arm, torso, or abdomen.
yes.
Now, let's move to Gary for a moment. Gary had 3 gunshot wounds, is that correct?
Yes,
All right. With respect to contact wounds, did Gary have any contact wounds?
1,
Which one was that?
number 2.
All right, Gary. Gunshot wound number 2 is contact. That means, and I think you put it in your report, a probable muzzle stamp. Is that,
Yes,
that's the same thing as a contact?
yes.
Did Gary have any loose contact?
No,
Did Gary have any intermediate?
yes.
Which ones?
That was number 3.
All right, Gary. Gunshot wound number 3. Does Gary have indeterminate?
Yes,
And which one was that?
number 1.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly break this
covers
down
his
in a
3
timely fashion for
Yes.
you. We're only
Now,
on
all these
trial
are
day
obviously, as you
6,
said, entered his brain.
Yes,
and
so
there's not a ton
Whichever one was first, and we don't know.
of
correct?
testimony
correct.
really
Whichever
on
one
day
was first,
2,
would he have been
2 and
rendered
3.
unconscious immediately?
yes.
It's really been 4, 5, and 6 that we've had a lot of testimony, and I'll be
And
live
do we
tomorrow
know of
too.
the 3
if you-
gunshot wounds? I
are free
believe
in the
gunshot
morning.
wound number 1 was to the back of his head, as you demonstrated earlier.
Yes,
Gunshot wound number 2 was to his left temple with a probable muzzle stamp. Is that
Yes.
right? Kind of like this, if my
Ye-
finger is it on?
yes,
All right. And then the third one is the intermediate distance, and that's his lower jaw.
Yes,
And you demonstrated.
Oh, we are.
Those
We'll be doing one
wounds
on
on a
Friday.
diagram for Gary as well. Is that right?
yes.
Could we pull up that just for a moment? Okay, this is Gary, is that right?
Oh, yes.
Great. So if we look for gunshot one, can we scroll down to the middle section there? Right there, thank you. If we have a diagram for Gary, gunshot entrance room number one is actually kind of in the middle of the page, is that right?
Right, it's the back of the head on the right side of the page.
So if I point here, it says GSW entrance number one, then you draw a line to the back of the head.
Yes,
And gunshot wound number two is written just above that, and the line is drawn down to the other diagram, kind of near between his eye and ear.
yes.
That's the muzzle stamp.
That's the one that I think I saw a muzzle stamp, yes.
And number three is just below that, GSW entrance number three to the jawline.
Yes.
Thank you. You can take it.
Now, I don't know what the defense is intending. Oh, thank you, Seth. I appreciate that. Because I know you have y'all's choices of creators out here, and that's to be the favorite. That's a lot. That's special, and I appreciate it. I
I'm a
just
little
can't
confused
figure
about
out.
the decomposition issue.
Oh, are
Perhaps you
you?
can clear that up for me.
Okay.
Do you have
Yeah.
an opinion of how long these two victims were dead before the bodies were found? If they were found in their homes, say between 7:30 in the morning and 8 o'clock in the morning on the 22nd of April, 2016.
Which is what day of the week?
I believe that's a Thursday, early Thursday morning. I'm sorry. Found Friday morning, April 22nd.
So if they're found on Friday at between 7 and 8
Say 7:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning?
on Friday,
Yes. And do you have an opinion on how long, based on the body, based on your observations?
how long the body was laying there before it was found?
Well, yes, it would go back to how long had they been dead?
Well, part of the problem is they're already decomposed when they come to me. And I can work backwards a little bit, but once they were found, I don't know what state they were when they were found. It's between 7:30 and 8. I do know that they laid there for a little while in the house as BCI was doing evidence and things like that. So there was no refrigeration at that point. So if they were found at between 7:30 and 8 on Friday and then lay there, and then I don't know exactly what time they got into the refrigerated truck. And then, so there was a delay in trying to stop the decomposition.
Understood.
Um,
So let me just stop you there if I can. And if you need to answer further, please do. But you were not provided the information as to when the bodies were moved into refrigeration from the scene?
That's correct.
Okay. So you were not provided that information.
That's correct.
And that hinders your opinion.
Oh, not really.
Okay. Would it be helpful to know what time they entered into a refrigeration unit?
No, if they knew if I know, yeah, if they knew when they put them in the refrigerated truck,
Okay, but you were not given that information?
no.
Okay, fair enough. Were you provided crime scene photos to look at in conjunction with your examination of bodies?
Yes.
All right, were those photos helpful in determining when these people may have been killed by observing the photos?
The photos were far away, obviously, because I didn't want to disturb evidence. When I get in on a body, I'm looking at them pretty close.
Of course.
And so from far away, looking at the scene pictures, I can't tell. That doesn't look like they're bloated. It doesn't look like they're all overall
Oh,
green.
thank you, Seth.
But I can't tell, looking at
Congratulations
those
on
crime scene
moving.
photos, what state they're in. Any of them, any of the women or the men, I can't tell.
Okay, fair enough. So you don't have an opinion as to when they were killed, based on your examination?
Based on the status of what they look like when I pulled them out of the cooler and started doing the autopsies, I would suggest that they were probably within maybe 48 hours, somewhere around that. At the most, 48 hours maybe that they were dead.
Okay.
But again, there's not an exact
I
science
don't
to
feel
determining that.
frozen.
But if they were dead longer than that, we would be
I don't
seeing
know.
more
Let me
changes
look.
to the body. And
Hold
all I
on.
can say is Gary and Christopher had changes to the body that the others did not.
Okay. All right, just to make sure I understand your report, you're using scientific language, of course, because you're a doctor.
Mhm.
So I just want to make sure I understand everything. So I may have a few
I don't
questions.
look frozen on my phone. I look like I'm doing okay.
With respect
Oh,
to.
it was you? Okay, don't be
Christopher, I think you
scaring
cleared
me,
this up, I
Amelia.
wasn't sure. And the
I've had so
toxicology.
many
Yes.
issues today.
He had caffeine, that's very clear, correct?
Yes,
And then he had a false positive for benzodiazepine, is that right?
Yes.
All right. So that was cleared up with later testing.
yes,
I'm
All right, so
curious
the
how you
only
get a false positive
Substance
with
he
a
had in his
benzo.
body was caffeine.
yes.
Now, with respect to Gary and his report. Your pages are not numbered, but let me show you if I could. I believe it's the first page of the postmortem examination. This
Okay.
page. That's what I'm going to call page one.
All right,
On that page,
It's okay.
you talk about rigor
Amelia.
mortis is absent under the general paragraph. the
Yes.
first paragraph under general. Okay. And then the liver mortis is red. Is that correct?
yes,
All right. And then you have that there's a pronounced body odor. Is that right?
yes.
Is that related to the status of decomposition?
No,
What is that about?
he was unbathed
Okay.
for a long period of time.
Okay. Now the next paragraph down, you have the mouth is, I apologize.
Edentulous,
Edentulous.
no teeth.
No teeth. Okay. So that's what that means.
Yes,
Without teeth.
that's correct.
All right. And then a little further down in the same paragraph, you say the upper extremities are not
Edematous,
edematous. What does that mean?
swollen with fluid.
Okay. So they are not swollen with fluid.
That's correct.
Okay. At the end of that paragraph, you have the lower extremities have no
Dysmorphic features.
dysmorphic features. What do you mean by that?
They're not misshapen. The
They're not
lower
misshapen.
legs are. So, like you get hit by a car and one leg is going this way and one leg is going that way.
Right.
I would call that dysmorphic features.
Okay. So he
So
has.
his legs look normal.
Okay. Thank you for that. And to finish that out at the very end, the toenails are thickened with,
Onychomycosis,
what does that mean?
toenail fungus.
Okay. Fair enough. Just want to make sure I understand your report. He did have some tattoos as you describe on the next page?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
you did.
You described those, correct?
You are not
In
a
the report,
monster,
yes,
Amelia.
yes.
Fair enough.
You're just a
You're very
gaslighter.
self-explanatory.
He's teasing. Is there a point to this, counselor? How does this help your client?
I got just a moment, Your Honor.
How many more moments you need? She's been testifying all damn morning. Oh, Lord Jesus. Listen to him flip through those papers. He tried really hard while we're waiting for him to find whatever the hell it is he's looking for. He's really trying to get her to say something different about the possible time of death. Jennifer, okay, I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't want to call attention to it because I don't think I've ever seen that in a report. But again, I've only ever seen autopsy reports that are made public, and I'm sure some stuff is left out of them. I had no idea they documented that. So everybody, remember how your mom used to tell you to take a shower and change your chonis? This is why. I don't know what to do about this crackling. It's driving me
Dr.
nuts.
Lemon, you indicated that both Gary and Chris showed more decomposition than the other individuals that you conducted autopsies on. Really,
Hold the phone. He just stood at that podium for the last, 2 minutes, thumbing through paperwork and then didn't have any more questions. He's lucky he wasn't in front of the Parkland judge. She would have gave him a tongue lashing.
related to this case, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Would that be consistent with them being killed first by a few hours and then also remaining at the scene before being placed in that mobile unit the longest?
Yeah, yes, that could be consistent with that, yes.
Okay. And additionally, if you were told that they were put in that mobile unit around 3 in the morning, again, having been killed approximately 11 p.m. on Thursday night, and then not being placed in the mobile unit until 3 a.m. on Saturday, and then I believe you indicated they got to your location around 5:30.
Holy
Um,
Jesus.
Again, that's more than 24 hours. That would be 28 hours.
Mhm.
Again, is the condition that you found their bodies in consistent with that?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any idea how cool that mobile unit is?
No, I've never talked to anybody about that unit. I just know that it's refrigerated, so I have no idea how cold it is.
Okay. So you don't know if it's as cool as your cooler at Hamilton.
No, I have no idea.
Okay. And again, I believe you indicated that that does not necessarily stop decomposition, but rather slows it.
It slows it, yes.
Okay.
Embalming is what stops it.
I believe you were asked about
Or
various injuries, and I believe you
Cremation.
indicated that there were some injuries that Chris received, that if he received them, he would then be unresponsive, I believe you indicated.
Yes.
And therefore would not be feeling anything.
Yes,
And what injuries would you say those are?
the shots to the head.
Okay. And including, I believe your gunshot number 1, if I'm getting it right, was in the cheek, was not part of that linear path that we talked about. That was 2 through 6.
That's correct.
So the 1 shot went through his cheek.
Yes.
Yes, for lack of a better word. Okay. And then also the shot that he received to the chest, would that also have rendered him unresponsive?
No,
Okay.
not necessarily, no.
Okay.
If you're shot in the heart, every time your heart beats, the blood pours out. And he did have at least a liter of blood in his chest.
yes.
So every
Wilson
time the
man.
heart beats and your blood pours out, that's less blood that's bringing oxygen to your brain. And at some point, you will pass out. That could be within minutes that you'll pass out. And then as the blood and your heart beats and your blood continues to leak, you will then die. So you can still actually run a block or two after being shot in the heart. It's what happens because the heart is injured that ultimately kills you. It's the loss of blood into your chest cavity, and it does no good in your chest cavity.
And you did find a large volume of blood in his chest cavity?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clear up, Mr. Parker asked you if the gunshot, number 9 was the only gunshot wound that, actually it's here more, that Chris Roden Sr. received that was, you believe, from a high-powered rifle, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There was no other injuries on his body consistent with a high-powered
That's correct.
rifle. And then gunshot wounds 1 through 8 would have been from the same weapon as each other, not the same as that high-powered rifle.
That's correct.
Okay. Another thing I just wanted to clear up was you were asked about contact wound. I think we understand what that is. The muzzle is actually touching the body of the individual shooting,
Yes.
correct? And you indicated that the intermediate was 3 inches to 3 feet, correct?
Yeah, that's an
And again,
approximate.
approximate. And I think you testified on direct that it depends on the type of weapon and a number of other factors.
Yes.
That goes into that. So that's not an exact measurement.
Correct.
Is that fair? Okay. And do you have any idea how a muffler, if there was a muffler on a weapon, how that would impact that as well?
Impacted,
Your determinations, I guess, or how far away the weapon would have been.
I'm not a silencer expert, but the purpose of the silencer is to prevent loud noise and not leave any evidence behind. So it wouldn't necessarily slow a bullet down or deviate a bullet or leave scratch marks on the bullet. So it may reduce the sound so that somebody else wouldn't necessarily hear it being shot, but it wouldn't affect the gunshot wound itself, gunshot itself and what it hurts.
Okay. Regarding the loose contact, I believe you indicated that would be somewhere up to an inch or so. What happens from 1 to 3 inches? What would that be?
So again, these are all estimates, but so when I'm saying contact, I mean, you're actually pressing the end of the gun to get to the skin. Your gun can be close to the skin, but not actually touch it. So whatever it takes for that muzzle to not actually touch the skin, could it be a millimeter? Yeah. Could it be a 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch? So it's got to be enough that a little bit of that smoke soot ends up on the skin and around the bullet hole. So it's very close, practically touching, but not touching exactly. And between 1 and 3, I would, depending on the weapon again, I would consider that possibly an intermediate, because the whole issue is, what do you see on the skin? Do you see the smoke on the skin, or do you see the stippling on the skin? If you see the stippling, you call it intermediate, because it's far enough away that gunpowder can exit out the end of the gun and start striking your skin and leaving marks. The smoke comes out even when your gun is very close to it. So it's that stippling that you see that makes it an intermediate. So and depending on the pathologist, some people don't use the terms loose contact. They just say contact, intermediate, and distance. So if you want to say 1 millimeter to the 3 plus the 3 feet, you could call that intermediate. But again, it's all how the pathologist likes to call it and what appears on the skin.
Okay. And again, that's why you wanted to do all of them, or wanted the same person to do all of them, is so that whatever lingo you settle upon, it's the same for each.
It's consistent, yes.
Okay. Regarding the diagram that you testified to for Mr. Parker of Gary Roden, I did not ask you those kind of foundational questions. Did you do that the same as you had done with Christopher? In other words, did you fill that out while you were actually conducting the examination, and is that in your handwriting?
Yes, to both, yes.
You make those notations and then use that to go make your report?
Yes.
Along with the photographs. Okay. And just regarding that, well, let me ask you this. Do you happen to know how long it takes to get from Hamilton County Coroner's Office to here? Approximately.
One time I looked at Waze and it was 1 hour and 45 minutes. Today it took me 1.5 hours.
Okay. So 1.5 hours to 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Depending on the traffic, I would
depending on
assume.
traffic, time of day, etc. Okay. Regarding that diagram, if you could pull that back up for Gary, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to agree with you,
go down.
Jennifer. I don't understand. She's not a gun expert.
Okay. So you can see on there, it's the bottom right drawing there, where you see that entrance wound, I believe you testified to, and that was could feasibly have been through that ball cap that we
Yes.
pulled out, and then exited the left temple there.
Yes.
And that was a very circular marking. And at the time, we indicated you could see that there was another injury there.
Above it, yes.
Okay, can you explain to us what that is?
Yes. Sometimes when the skull fractures such extensively from the trauma, from the gunshot wounds to the head, it actually tears through the skin. The jagged edges of the bone can tear through the skin. So that wound that's above number 1, which is on the back left part of his head, that linear wound above it is from the fractured bones tearing through the skin.
I think we pretty much get the gist. Yes. All right. All right, you guys. So hopefully I'm not crackling. This has been a great live. I've had it, and I always have fun with you guys. I feel a little guilty saying that because of the subject matter, but I do have fun discussing these kinds of cases. I mean, true crime cases, not, you know what I mean. Whoever is going to interpret that incorrectly is going to interpret it incorrectly. You guys know what I mean. Yes, Corky, it is incredibly bizarre. Especially, okay, so let's talk a little bit briefly about what we learned tonight and add it to stuff that has already been presented at the trial. So according to the opening statements and Jake Wagner, his confession, Chris Roden Sr. was unalived by Billy Wagner. And to me, I I have to say that hearing the forensic pathologist's testimony today actually lends credence to that part of Jake's confession. And the reason is because it isn't necessary for him to have been um, shot so many times in the face. He had 9 shots total. 6 of them were in his face. 1 in his torso, 1 in his arm, and I think 1, she said, in his abdomen. So to me, it would seem that the person who did the shooting was angry at the person who was being shot because it's so extra and unnecessary. Even if you take into if you even if you say, okay, well, perhaps the one in the arm occurred first, then the one in the abdomen, then the one in the chest, but 6 times in the face is at a at pretty close range. 3 inches is pretty close. You're up in that person's, you're close. Well, the muzzle is 3 inches. So I suppose you could be a little bit, but you're not that, it's not like you're across the room. Let's put it that way. So to me, that's indicative of it being personal, where conversely, um, Gary wasn't shot as many times, which this is the other thing that I have to question. And I kind of, listen, this isn't disparaging the family at all, the Roden family, because I don't give a rat's fat kneecap what they did. They didn't deserve this. Okay. I don't care if they had a grow operation on their farms. I don't care about that. This is not, nothing nothing warrants what happened. It was complete. Yeah, I can't say that word, but you can, and I agree, Corkies. Um, but I just feel like I think there had to be something more with because of, it's clear that Billy and Chris knew each other, right? And whether they were, friendships are funny. You can be friendly with somebody without technically being friends, or you can go from being friends to sort of people grow apart. You know how it goes. And you're then not really friends, but you're not enemies, but you're friendly. And then you add into the mix that 2 of your children at one point were dating and had a child together. So, there's all kinds of interpersonal relationships going on just on that alone. So to me, it seems to me that there was more than just this custody battle between uh, Billy Wagner and Chris Sr. Billy clearly had some anger towards Chris Sr. Otherwise, it's just so extra. And I think the cops kind of knew that from the beginning because um, the longer you linger at a crime scene, right? Especially given the fact, and this is the other thing I'm curious about, and I know that they have talked about this a little bit, but not in great detail. I'm curious how far apart each of the homes were from one another. Yes, Corky, yes. Like frenemies, So I'm curious, this, I get that initially you would think, okay, well, you see marijuana, there's at three of the properties, yada yada yada, right? You're thinking, okay, this has something to do with that. When you take a closer look, if this were organized, if this were professional, because initially, remember, they thought it was the cartel. The longer you're in a crime scene, the more risk you are at being caught. The longer you linger, you leave things behind of yourself, DNA, hair, yada yada yada, right? All those things, we know this. So if it were professional, they would want to get in and get out. There would be no need to shoot this this many times. There wouldn't be. So I think there's a little bit more to it. And remember, now we haven't even touched what's going on with Billy Wagner, because he's still awaiting trial, and his trial date hasn't even started. They've done some right around the same time they were doing like preliminary hearings with George Wagner, the fourth. That Billy Wagner was in court around the same time doing the same thing, but he doesn't have a trial date set just yet. So we don't know. And the only people, George is not going to get up there and testify. If he does, he is a fool. So I highly doubt he's going to do it. And we haven't heard from Angela and Jake yet to hear their version of events. So I'm just because this is the thing I'm curious about Angela and Jake, right? Okay, so Billy is awaiting trial, okay, but so much of the planning, according to Jake, was really between the three of them. It was really Angela, Jake, and Billy Wagner, right? And I'm kind of curious what they're going to, how much of what Billy said or did is going to be allowed as far as testimony, because that's hearsay. I'm just very curious about this whole thing. And I know that the judge has granted Jake and Angela the option to opt in or opt out. And the state, which I actually agree with this, the state has said, hey, guess what? Jake and Angela, we're going to file a motion to have your privileges revoked until you testify. I actually agree with that. But I also understand how petty human beings can be. And I feel like if they might just opt out just because they're having a temper tantrum. Who knows? And I agree with you too, Jennifer. They really don't have, they have enough, I think, on Jake, Angela, and Billy, but they don't have enough on George, because they have Angela Wagner on security film or security cameras buying the tennis shoes from Walmart that match the impressions that were found, that were left in the blood. They found the receipt. They have the custody agreement that was purported to have been written in 2014, although when they pulled did all the forensic dataing, it's not really a word, but the forensic data, when they did examination on the laptop, they soon discovered that the document wasn't even created until 2016. Then there's the whole notary, which was also forged by Angela. So that part, they've got, I think, Jake, Angela, and Billy pretty solid. It's George I'm not so sure about, although I do believe that he was part of it, because of the way that family functioned. They were like the devious, what is it? What, not I guess Mouseketeers, but that's not really the right one. All for one and one for all. It's not Mouseketeers. What am I trying to think of? Musketeers. Jeez, Jen. So yeah, they were, all for one and one for all, that family. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to stay tuned. There's a ton more to come if you think about it. I mean, the trial's supposed to be somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks, and we're only on week 2. We have at least 4 more weeks to go. So we'll see what they do between now and then. And will all start tomorrow morning at 8:50 a.m. Court begins at 9 a.m. and I will stream tomorrow morning. We'll see what's what, who gets on the stand to testify, and what they have to say. Yes, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Tammy, yep, or Tabitha, yeah. Isn't her name Tabitha? I mean, they may, yeah, I'm on pins and needles, but I want to thank everybody for coming in tonight and supporting me. If you haven't done so already, please thumbs up the stream. And if you know anybody that would like to join in on the convo or just listen, send them the link. All right. Share it out. Thank you guys all for being here. Thank you to my mods. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. You guys' support is, I just want to make sure I had the name right, Jennifer. I be getting names right wrong all the time. So I wanted to make sure I had it right. I'm horrible with names. But yeah, you guys, thank you all for being here. Your support is amazing, and I'm always grateful and appreciative for it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday night or Tuesday night. I don't even know what day of the week it is. Is it Tuesday? Let me just Yes, it's Tuesday, Jen, because Molson and I already talked about Monday Night Football. So Tuesday night. And if I don't see you in the morning, I hope you have a great Wednesday, and I'll see you tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening. All right. You guys take care and be safe out on these real streets and on these YouTube streets, because it'll be getting dicey out there. All right. Good night, you guys. Bye.